Okay, cool.
Okay. Welcome, Rob.
Oh, hi.
Hi.
Hello. I should have got that right. Okay, sorry about that.
No. This is not this. I was joking.
Oh, okay. All right.
No, we will do a transcript, but this is not going to be shared like the sound bites. As far as I know, I mean, if anything, it would be edited and we would tell you ahead of time. I would hit you up and be like, Rob, look, we like this little clip. Are you cool with that? And we might use it, but nothing will be used in its entirety or anything like that.
Right. Okay, I got it.
Yeah.
I guess the first thing, Lee, that came into my head when you were telling me about this prospect last week or whenever it was how much, like, I'll use the term ownership, felt as though the village wanted to entrust in all the people that they needed to get involved in this. And just that sense of like, whose space is this? Who's it for? Who's it not for? How long is it ours? It kind of like, and I wasn't really sure, it felt to me that the way you were describing it, as though there is like an architectural space that is like the place, but there's also the place as in like outside the door maybe, or across the street, or like another outdoor space. But there did seem to be a sense of like a push on the gallery that like there needs to be some kind of a place to see stuff. And so I thought, I mean, and this is a steal. This is not my idea. This is an idea of, oh crap, I'm gonna forget his name. But anyway, I'll remember that later. But it's the simple idea of keys and giving everyone who's on the sort of like oversight committee of neighbors and caretakers a key.
Wow.
And
like literally a key.
Literally the key to the space.
Yeah.
So like anyone can open it, who has the key for whomever wants to get in. And just like that simple thing of like, put this on your key ring, the same key ring that you'll use to like open up your own house door or get into your car or whatever you've got, or your parents' house. Like it exists in that same kind of circle.
Right.
You know what I mean? So that right from the get-go, there's a sense of like, you know, this is your space, here's the key, you know.
I love that. Yeah, I mean, that makes a lot of sense.
Paul Ramirez Jonas did a piece in Brazil where anyone who wanted to come to this show got the key to the gallery's door.
Wow.
And so so that was where I got that from.
No, but that's very symbolic. You know, I'm big on symbols, and I think that is quite a gesture. You know, I mean, it says a lot, like you said, about access, about ownership,
accountability.
Yeah, accountability. I mean, that's huge. Exactly, because on another note altogether, my friend daughter just turned 13, and one of her gifts was getting a key to the house, you know, meaning that it's a responsibility, but it also means you can go and come as you please. There's a freedom to it, but it comes with a responsibility as well. And it's kind of like a rites of passage of sorts, you know, as you get older. As a kid, I remember, you know, I was a latchkey kid though, so I got my key early, but I think that that says a lot. I like that idea. And I think that's kind of where the village would go, you know, like that's definitely a path they might choose, because we are moving towards a space of like collective responsibility. So there might be, you know, like a larger group that is, you know, kind of stewards of the space, you know. Maybe everybody in the neighborhood don't have a key, but there are, you know, and when you get that key, you got to sign for it or whatever. And we understand who, you know, because you got to keep track of those kind of things.
Yeah. Because like there's people who's going to lose their key.
Yeah, no, exactly.
You know, like, oh, I gave it to the artist because I knew they had to come by and I couldn't be there with them. So there's all this. So maybe there's a set amount, like 6 or something like that.
Yeah, no, exactly. I like that. Like, you know, how many rings were there in Lord of the Rings? I can't remember, but everybody had a ring. I think there was 6. But anyway. No, but I love that. It's a great idea.
So I thought maybe that, you know, if there's 6 people who hold the key, that they are kind of curated individuals from the village's network of who they want to be involved in this. So you've got your elders, your young people, your neighborhood artists, whatever it is, but it's this sense of like we're the group.
Yeah.
And I thought that that could be something that would help to bind them together, is that they're each the key holder, but
Oh, I love it. I
they
love it.
they also have like a main responsibility, obviously, to one another,
Hmm.
to keep that together. And then this central core group of key holders would kind of like set the tone, set the rules. So like if there's opening hours, they determine like we could have set opening hours, or we could just like open it when we need to. Like
Right, right.
if you need to come in, you could call any of these 6 people. But like it's that kind of way of like they're in charge.
Yeah.
Um then I also thought, instead of, because it sounded to me as though there was going to be one all right. Sorry, my wife's just doing a thing.
That's right. That's right. Wives can do their things over there.
Yeah. um no, she's just happy because this doesn't need to go in the transcript, but because she's younger than me, she doesn't need to get, we're trying to get life insurance policies, and
Oh,
she doesn't
she
need to
doesn't
get,
qualify.
she's qualified right away, but I got to go through all the physicals and all the doctors.
Oh, is that how it works?
Yeah, if you she's 40, so they said like we don't need to get an exam. I'm 47. They said, yeah, you need an exam,
Oh,
buddy.
I'm right with you. I'm 48. So look, I'm telling you, it's not. I know, doesn't it? I mean, look, please give
Anyway,
me the physical. Give me the physical, because these days, I
uh,
mean, every time you turn around, something's going wrong. I know.
exactly. It's not bad to know.
Yeah.
Um, so I was thinking that, so we've got these key holders,
Hmm.
um, and they could determine the main themes of whatever shows feel like need to be happening, or
Yeah.
the opening hours, all that kind of stuff. But I think you mentioned in our last conversation that there was going to be a like a curator, or like someone in charge to like manage this space.
Hmm.
And I'm saying, like, I don't know if this is gonna fly, but split that salary 7 ways.
Okay.
So
Now that's
the
different. That's different. I like that. They want, because that's not set in stone. I think that, you know, that's why we're doing this process, because we want to know what are different ways we can go about it. You know, does there have to be like a chief curator, or can that, like you said, can that role be delegated, dispersed among 6 people, the 6 key holders or what have you, you know, who
yeah,
all
so
have
like,
similar skill sets or something?
so you would have the 6 key holders each getting an equal split, and then the seventh sliver of that salary would go to a curator, who would
Mhm.
obviously have to be there now on a part-time basis, but now you're like splitting it. So there isn't this sense of like, oh, you're the expert and we're the community residents or whatever. There is this sense of like we're all getting equal pay. We would,
Mhm.
I would hope that they could all get healthcare benefits.
Yeah.
Um, and that this would be the way that the money would be tied. And that way everybody kind of knows what everybody's on the same footing. It's not
Yeah,
like,
because
oh,
you know
you'll
they
get,
try to keep that a secret. Like, you know, I don't think that's a good idea. The way at the museums, like it was a secret what your colleagues were getting. You know.
yeah, yeah. So this way the money is all sort of like understood,
Mhm.
and everybody understands like, hey, you're getting paid, but yet I'm getting paid, but yet I seem to be here a lot more than you're here, or I'm
Mhm.
doing a lot more things than you're doing. So it sets up this sense of like we need to have some kind of equity. And then they can say
Right.
like, yeah, but I'm cooking all the meals when we do show up. So
Right.
there's a sense of like, okay, so what is
That's
going to be
true.
the
Yeah.
balancing thing here? Um
That's brilliant. You came out the gate with a great one. I love that.
um I would say I would turn down, if I could, some of the vocabulary. So
Mhm.
like no shows, but instead offerings.
Okay.
Because really every artwork is an offering to a somebody.
Mhm.
So I would call it that. And I feel like that kind of the generosity that's implied in a word like an offering is
Yeah.
something that I think is can spread to a lot more people with a lot more ideas of what's valued than
Right.
just people like, oh, I don't get art. or like
Right.
art's not really doing it for me. But like I think if you say, look, I'd like to make this offering to the space.
Right. And then it kind of eliminates this judgment too, because when it's a show, it becomes performative in some way. And there's this expectation that it has to almost be perfect. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
People rehearse and they prepare for these shows, but an offering is like you kind of come as you are. You might prepare for it, but there is no judgment. It's like whatever you're able to offer of yourself in that moment is what it is, you know?
Yeah, yeah.
I
So I
like
would
that a lot.
so I would dial down like, here's my artwork, or like, here's our art show. Be like, well, here's the offerings that these community members and artists and musicians or whatever can give to the space right now. And
But
I
you
go
know
like
what?
that.
I think you'd be a great person to ask this question then, as far as like, does gallery even make sense? Like if there was an alternative word for gallery, what would you want to call it?
I wouldn't call it a gallery. I think there are a lot better words. I think like, you know, communal space, a sanctuary.
Oh, sanctuary.
Um,
Good.
I think it's not exactly the right word, but
Right.
I think that a library is something, because people tend to like use a library in a
Hmm.
way that they don't expect to use a gallery.
Right.
So I think there's something helpful in the term of library.
Yeah.
Um,
And one of my father's biggest art shows or exhibitions was at the Philadelphia Library. You know what I mean?
yeah, yeah.
I mean, libraries are known to display and offer art as well. So,
Yeah. I mean, I also think, you know, it's obviously riffing off of the domesticity of the space, but like,
right.
I think that there's a lot of weight in just the terminology of the living room.
Oh, mhm.
You know what I mean? Like every house usually has a living room, but I think if you like,
Yeah, the
if,
living room though, I like that.
right, so if you spend a little time with that phrase, you'll sort of like, oh, okay, there's another angle to that for
There's
me.
another angle to that for sure.
Yeah. So anyway, that's some of the stuff that I would probably go for.
Yeah, no, I'm glad I asked you that.
um, let's see. I'm just looking at my notes here again.
Yeah.
Um, I think that what is ever offered to the space um, should find its way back into the neighborhood.
Hmm.
So the space becomes the public place to see the offering, but then it goes back into the private. And in
Hmm.
this way, the space becomes kind of like a pass-through space.
Ooh.
You know, it's not like, oh, it's at the gallery. So now
And
this
that's the
is like,
final
right,
destination.
and this is the pinnacle. It's
Right.
like, no, actually, we're just offering this object into this space, and then it's
Hmm.
going to go to another space. So it's always understood as on the continuum, because as we
I
know,
love
like
that.
everything is on the continuum,
Hmm.
but we have this sense of like, once it goes on the wall, that's it for this thing, and anything else is sort of like bummerland. But
Yeah.
I think it's nice to think of the offerings to this space as actually having another destination after this one, which is equally, if not more so, important.
No, that's beautiful. And also it goes with the concept of the design. I don't know if I clarified that, but there it's going to be like an indoor outdoor space. So, and this is something that the architect is going to realize through the design, that I'm not, I don't have all the details on it, but that's the concept, that there will be an indoor outdoor kind of vibe, similar to how like with the staying power exhibition with Monument Lab, that there was like, there was an indoor outdoor kind of
Mhm.
thing and experience. And that was also kind of out of, people are still trying to figure out how to build in COVID response and whatever comes next response, right? I mean, 2020 was COVID, or well, still COVID, and people are still trying to figure out how do we move into these seasons, in and out of these seasons of being out in the world and then having to kind of retreat again, because
Yeah.
who knows what fall or winter will bring this year and what it might mean for, going back virtual or indoor, outdoor, this and that. So I like that concept because, yes, thinking of almost as like the space as a throughway, towards that funnels out back into the community.
Yeah, it's like a portal or a threshold. Like it
Yeah.
comes into this space, but then it's going to go to somewhere else. And so, like if, like I'm just trying to think of an ideal example.
Portal's a
where,
good word too, Rob. I mean, I like that.
okay,
The future's portal, the village
yeah.
future portal.
And I guess in my ideal example, you've got someone who wants to come and see these offerings.
Mhm.
A key holder opens its space up for them. They
Right.
come into this space and they really gravitate towards one of the offerings in the space. And the key holder has, has the responsibility and has a deep enough understanding of the offerings and who was offered them and can talk about the offerings. And the stranger who comes into the space says like, oh, I love this. I love this weaving. This is beautiful. And then the key holder would have the authority, I guess, to say, would you like to be the next holder of this offering?
Right.
And if they're like, yeah, I'd love to have this in my home, then there could be a relationship there where they're like, okay, well, when this offering is ready to be moved
The
on,
transition, right? Yeah.
transition, like we'll make sure it goes to you. And there's this way in which it's not like, in this way, it's not a store, it's
Right.
not a gallery, but it's a pass through where people sort of learn to connect with things and commune with things and realize again they want a longer relationship than what is offered in this current space.
Yeah, that's amazing. Like I'm getting like, I just got the, when the chills and stuff. That's a sign. I feel like that's a sign. I think this you could be onto something here, Rob. I really like it. And yeah, no, I mean, because when I think of all the conversations I've had with Aviva and the team, Jeanette, like, this idea of, kind of like creating a flow, like, and that's
Yeah,
exactly what you described in terms of not just the process of art and artists, but also just like, how the art moves through the community, and
yeah,
like you said, like having the space be a portal for that, a threshold for that. It just, it makes lovely sense. It's poetic. I dig it. And it's also practical. Like it serves what they, were describing as the mission, like in some of the early proposals for the project. So I think, yeah, that could be really something. It really could be.
cool.
Yeah.
So you mentioned in our last conversation about the archive,
Yeah.
like where should the archive live? How could that be strengthened? And my feeling on it is that um, there should be no centralized archive. Like
Mhm.
the archive should not solely live with the village,
Mhm.
because I think that sort of like creates a hierarchy of
Right.
who has access.
Mhm.
So, and what I'm hoping for is that the archive lives in the neighborhood, and the curator, the person who gets like 1/7 of that sliver of the salary,
Right.
their like duty is to be the scribe, so that they would not only collaborate with the key holders to accurately and authentically document what has happened over the year, like which offerings have been offered, where have they
Right.
gone next, and these kinds of things, but must also work to curatorially and collaboratively decide where these moments of documentation must live in perpetuity.
Ooh,
So
I like that. Yes.
so if it
That
should be
sounds
on,
great. And you said that the word scribe. So one of the things that we're doing with this project is creating this where we're not using the word tarot, we're using the word oracle deck, right? And so the archetypes that have been identified are related to the research and development, like in terms of the conversations that I've had with people from the community to the youth to folks like yourself. And the word scribe was one of the archetypes chosen
mm,
because it relates to the archive, it relates to the accountability and responsibility of individuals to document and whatnot. So when you said that, it definitely resonates. And I think that it just really affirms that this is something that's important to this community, for sure.
yeah. So like the example in my head is a quilt that hangs downstairs in our living room. And the
Like the
quilt
one
was
behind you?
not this one,
Okay.
but another one. This one was made by a different side of my family, but the one
Oh,
downstairs came from my mom's dad's aunt. And there's
wow.
there's like a little bit of like it's written on pen, like kind of like with a needle stuck to the back of the quilt.
Right.
So, because invariably people will say like, oh, that's a nice quilt. Where'd that come from? And I'd be like, well, this was made by so and so in
Right.
1894, and da, 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 da. My great grandfather can remember it being so. But like, so I guess what I'm asking for is like each one of these offerings, each one of these events comes with its own archive of what made it meaningful, if you know what I mean.
Right. Yeah,
And
yeah, yeah.
so if an offering is being given to someone because they have an affinity with it, that object should come with a bit of a story as to what makes this offering so special to the person not only who made it, but to the people who've wanted to receive it.
That received it. Yeah. So it's kind of like this context, like some sort of anecdote that
Yeah.
is, a part of the cataloging of that artifact or whatever, right? Or the artwork
Yeah.
offering. I think that's brilliant because that's when you really get into the nuance of like what makes something special and meaningful to each of us,
Mhm. Mhm.
because things are going to resonate with me for different reasons. And then it also starts to tap into like the larger story that connects all of us, like what,
Right.
how these things play a role in our memory, our collective memory and our experiences. But the quilt is such a great metaphor and the symbol as well. And I think that's great. I mean, you're lucky because not all families have these kind of
I,
treasures and
I
artifacts,
know. I know. I've got
Yeah,
like three of
amazing.
them, you know.
Yeah,
I
no, I
got
think that's
three.
beautiful because I kept looking at this behind you. I was like, wow, and
Oh,
I
right.
felt like it is like this must be, yeah, because I'm trying to think. Yeah, I mean, I think maybe I got some silverware. I got my grandma's silver. I mean, what am I gonna do?
Exactly. Exactly. But like there's a story there that like
Right, there's a story there. There's
you don't
definitely
want
a
to
story
lose it.
there. Because believe me, they made it a big deal. They're like, you're getting grandma's silver. I'm like, okay,
Right, right,
okay.
right, right. Yeah, yeah. But
Right.
there's something to that in your family that you don't want to lose.
Right. No, it's true. It's true. Believe me, I've been reminded. So,
And if
yeah, but I don't know. I don't know what I'm gonna do with it, but no,
right,
I'm holding it. I'm holding it and cherishing it. But no, this is great. All this stuff is amazing.
I guess the last two bits that I
Yeah.
had, one was about the calendar, just in terms because
Mhm.
inevitably it
Yeah.
becomes a question like, in I guess in the vernacular of our profession, it's sort of like, well, how long's the show? What's your next show? When's your next,
Right.
like all that kind of stuff. And I'm just wondering if there's another lived or authentic way to keep time, um, and the way in which you know these offerings would find their own rhythm within the project, to be collaboratively designed by between the key holders. So it wouldn't have to be a sense of like, okay, this offering is going to be here for 2 months and then it's going to go away, um, but rather to be like, okay, this had its moment and now we're going to gift it on, and it
Yeah.
goes like that, rather than saying like, okay, everything comes down from the walls and they get sent
Right.
out, but rather like it can be that kind of organic process, that
Yeah.
the time is being kept by the emotions that the people bring with them to the offering, rather than saying like, you got to stop caring for this thing on the 30th of June because that's when we're
Right. No matter how you feel about it,
right, right.
Yeah, no, that's real. That is real because I mean, on the sidebar is that a friend asked me to take care of their plants during the pandemic, and during the height of it when people were in isolation. So I live alone, and so these plants, I got close with them, and then when he came to reclaim them, I was like, no, not yet. Like I'm still attached to these plants. You know what I mean? I
Yeah,
had named them and everything. So it was challenging. Luckily one of them, like how you could propagate or whatever, they had a little
right,
baby, little
right.
spider plant had a little baby on it, and then now it's growing big. But I think there's something to be said about these hard dates for the run of an exhibition,
Right.
and yeah, and so what I think is happening is that with the model that you're describing, which is organic and like free flowing, it really is going to take a special group of individuals that is accountable, understands like the ethos, right? This is something that Aviva talks a lot about in terms of really wanting to understand what the ethos will be for this space, you know, and for the people that are stewards of it, you know. And I
Right.
think this idea of like sharing the responsibility and like letting things like be, you know, like that organic, like, because you talk about the organic thing, and
Well,
it makes me think about plants and stuff. Sometimes you just got to let them do their thing and let them reach things in their own time. And that might be about people's connection to the offering itself, you know. Are you there?
Exactly. And I think a lot of that comes down to, or whoever this works out with the key holders and whatever, is that, some things are going to leave at different times.
Right.
Like some things, may have a short time in this space of offerings, and some things might want to stick around a lot longer, depending on the needs of the community and the individuals. So it's like, it's that listening to and that reciprocity to being like, okay, this needs to stay a little longer, but this other thing that can go quick.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I like that, because it's kind of like, maybe lifespan is not the right word, but it's kind of like, yeah, like the just the time, like the season of any particular offering is going to be different for each offering, you know.
Yeah.
And people kind of have to be vigilant to pay attention to how that offering is resonating with the community, with the artists, with the people, you know, so that you can know when is the right time for it to move on.
Yeah. I guess the last thing I had written down was just about and I think this has been woven in throughout our conversation this morning, but like a sense of the expansiveness of it, that it doesn't get into the rut of like, even though we're using all these words like offering or living room or decentralized archive, all these kinds of things, that it's still, these key holders, maybe they in their own time come to the end of what they think they can offer as their service. And that's when they pass their key on to the next person, be like, I'm done. But like with each of these passing of the keys, or each of these ideas that may come out of the group, that they feel as though they have the opportunity, the responsibility, the interest to make it be whatever they need it to be. Like, we can offer this structure of the offerings and what have you, but they may be like, well, what we just really need right now is this. And they have the sense that they can just do that without having to feel as though like, oh, we have to wait to see if that's approved or not.
Yeah, because that's the agency, right? Like everyone kind of has, like, because that's the thing, like pushing back against the idea of authority, and who's in charge. Like, we're all making decisions,
Yeah.
No, I love that. That's great. I mean, look, what can I say? I'm so glad that we got to tap into your brain. We really appreciate it.
It was a fun ask, it was a fun ask. This is the kind of stuff we live for,
Yeah, no, it's good stuff. It's good stuff. And I'm excited. They're going to be excited about these ideas. I promise you, you know what I mean?
Okay.
Like, yeah, no, I think that because again, like even with the little bit that I've shared, I know I haven't given you so many details about it, but I really appreciate how you took the time to really think about these things, in such a thoughtful way, because it's like we want to do something different. And you have experience of what has already been done, but what, and again, it's all trial and error. I mean, I think it's all an experiment. And they're okay with that too, like, learning and growing together and seeing how it works out. We'll see how, like the key holder thing, who knows how it could go, but that's if you pick the right folks, and the folks that really are into the, like they are believing in the concept as well, then I think it could work. It could really be a beautiful thing. So we'll see. I'll keep you posted on that. So the next steps for us is that I'm really going to be taking the feedback from this final round, right? This is kind of phase 2 of interviews. And then, like I said, this is going to be incorporated into this larger project of this Oracle deck that will be our way of kind of creatively reporting back to the community, what this process has been like and what we found out, what we discovered, and how that will then inform the actual programming, the curatorial vision, the staffing, all the things with the actual space when it opens up.
Okay.
And there will be a public installation. So I will, if anything, I'll follow up with you. First of all, I'm going to give your information to your email to the folks at the village, because someone from the business office will be in touch with you about the payment for one.
Oh, sure.
Then, yeah, but then also, you know, if there are any sound bites or any quotes or things like that, because we do want to quote our experts, you know, we want to quote the folks that have given us these amazing ideas. And it's important, I think, for folks to know who all was involved in the process. So there will be something along those lines, but whatever it is, I'll let you know ahead of time. And we're a little ways from that, but it's coming soon. I mean, you know, summertime.
Okay, I get it.
But
All right.
anyway, thank you so
Great
much,
to see you,
Rob.
Lee. I'll
Yeah,
probably
enjoy
see
the
you
rest
at
of your
more.
day. Yeah,
Yep.
take
All
care.
right. Bye-bye.
Bye.